So, good afternoon, good morning, or whatever time it is in your country and your city. We welcome you to our Colors of Humanity podcast. And we have a very special guest today, and he asked me not to introduce him too extreme, but I cannot hold myself. So, if you ever heard about Bob Geldof and the organization of the big concerts in during the 80s, Food for Africa. He is quite the equivalent in Austria. He's a great networker. He cares a lot about human rights, about discrimination, about talking to communities, about networking. Very famous person in Vienna and Austria. I'm very honored that he's part of our podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for this over-friendly introduction. Daniel Landau is my name. I'm a teacher for my original profession. I studied economics before, a little bit conducting. And yes, to make it short, I love to connect people, so to bring them together for subjects or aims or whatever in fields which I would dare to call good. So connecting people, bringing people together, because I have the big belief that if we make it in the future, in a better future, hopefully, it only will be possible to find the bridges to each other, to different opinions, to different sides, different maybe religions, culture, whatever this is, languages. By the way, apologies. English is naturally not my mother language. I'm a little bit out of training, I thought before, but let's see if I don't find the correct English word, I will try to fill in a German one and maybe cut it friendly transposer of what I heard. Could put it in English. So yes, I like to connect people. I like to meet people, and this only works out for me because I might say because I love or I like human beings, Mensch. I like people a lot.
You mentioned building bridges. How do you build bridges, and which bridges did you build recently?
So the bridge building process is, first of all, the most important thing: you cannot build a bridge alone. The bridge in itself needs two sides to be built. It's not possible to build it always in one direction. I believe, and also the picture of it. So building bridges means, for instance, I can tell you a very momentary case where I tried to build or to connect. Because our father was Jewish. I'm a little bit nearer to, let's call it, the Israel side of this really highly complex Near East conflict, war situation, whatever. So I'm more Israeli side, but it's very important for me to keep in contact with also the Islamic community in Austria. So just before we are here, sitting here, I met the president of the Islamic community in Austria, which I really have the big belief that if we sit in our warm living rooms and dare to judge the process going on in Israel and surrounding countries, it's at least important of how we could work together here in Austria, in between those religion, in between these conflicts, and more specific, because that's as I said, my main profession. I look into schools and classes. But to call it less big, building bridges or connecting people starts every moment when you look into somebody's eyes and try to find out which good ideas she or he might have, and not to interpret everything with what you hear or read on like X or any other social media, first of all in a bad way or in a skeptical way or in a negative way, but to try to focus on the positive aspects of life, of your vis-a-vis of other people. And that's not something that's something I could say thank you, because it's in my nature to try to find out what we have in common with even a person who might have very different positions and therefore very different point of views, but still to find out how could we work together, but also to clarify that at the beginning it's also very important to define your personal borders, your side, which are not crossable, because if we start to accept intolerance too much and to tolerate intolerance, I think this condecorate itself then very fast. So it only works if you have a clear border of not crossable things like human rights or basic understandings of equality and all these subjects maybe we could talk about, and only have, if you have those clear borders, those not crossable, stable positions, then it's possible in this wide area to find out how we could cooperate, how we could still find a way to live together, because the human being itself is born as a social human being.
If you think about your work in the classrooms and think about the last almost 20 years regarding what we call hate speech and conflict resolution and the situation also with the discrimination which can have, and we heard it in our workshops in the Colors of Humanity project, can have many faces. So many people can be the victim, but also can be the oppressor. What changed in the last decades, and how do you see the influence of the internet and social media?
First of all, to answer the last point, for sure, it can be said that the influence of the internet, by all its good sides, and social media, by all its positive opportunities it offers, it does not help in communicating. I have the feeling you really have to, it's not fight, because fight would be the wrong expression, but you have to put a lot of love or whatever. I don't want to get too sweet because I'm not. But you have the feeling that you have to work a lot against this acceleration of hate and intolerance, which is automatically also by the algorithm, which strengthens more the negative, emotionally pushy, annoying, and people getting mad. So this aspect is naturally transformed more and more. And for me, I have the feeling that even more I have to feel some tryings or whatever to find still ways. So it does not help. And of course, this goes on for young people like the TikTok professor, and they speak about algorithm very easily, which is quite good. Wissenschaftlich erforscht, whatever this is in English. This is approved, scientifically approved, that this algorithm pulls you into right-wing parties, into extreme Islamic, Muslim, whatever political direction. So it does not help the mild way, the understanding way, the trying the things like you. When I read you, I feel the same. But a lot of people try to make.
That raises one more question. With my Disinfo Resilience Network, I'm also kind of a network, and I bring together people who have some certain part of influence, expertise, opinion leaders, we say, some politicians. And you, since many years, do quite the same. So you connect people, you try to deliver projects, and you are very successful in this. But what do you think about all these opinion leaders and these community leaders? How strong is their influence on the actual community if the internet and social media is already so strong? Do they still reach their people?
It's a hard question, to be honest. Just before, I wanted to say I try to connect them, even if they have different opinions, which is a quite difference, by trying to find die gemeinsame Schnittmenge. So what
common ground?
To find a broader common ground. Maybe that's also a good description of what I try to to implant in our community in Austria. So in the small area I'm working in, and we always have to keep in mind that Austria is compared to the rest of the world just like a dwarf. So just to keep ourselves also in the realistic side of ourselves. So coming back to your question, no, of course, it's also more different for opinion leaders or leaders of the community. So they are still voted, they are still sort of representing their group. They have the right, the democratic, normally right, to speak for the community. So they still have some power. But because everything gets a lot faster, the media, not only the social media, but the classical media, which are now, I don't know, tens or hundreds or thousands times overwhelmed by internet media and social media stuff, which brings you in seconds, thousands of miles away. So, of course, every single person might have smaller opportunity to influence. But even coming back to my point of view, this makes it even more important to connect those different people also on the basic line. That's why I like also using sort of X, so people knowing me might feel that I really like to be there, and yes, it's true. And even there, beginning with Musk and actually before, when people say, "Oh, X gets more and more aggressive and more we have to go there," and whatever. I think it's your decision. You can. It's your decision whom you read. It's your decision whom you might even block. Although this function is said to get lost now these days, but so you can, let's call it, you can curate. I don't know what this word exists in English as well, kuratieren in German. You can curate your own timeline. You're responsible for what you're reading, and even more, of course. And that's the main point again. You are still responsible for what you are writing, how you reflect to people, how you try to find out whether the other people on the internet is trying to maybe has her or his problems and what he really is going to say. I don't mean that you have to understand everything, or like in the Old Testament, you have to, when he hits you, you have to put also the other side of your face. No, I'm not this form of ultra religious. And of course, I also ask for respect. But sometimes people are really very mini-me, we say. So really, they write a lot of quite aggressive stuff into the internet, but they don't realize themselves, but find all the others more aggressive. So I try to turn it around. I know that sometimes people start hitting me a lot. I can get quite uncomfortable as well. So I'm not a holy person at all. And yes, that's the way it is. But on the other hand, I see the opportunity using those. Now we are a little bit away from the questions, by the way, from the opportunity leaders. But I see this big opportunity also via social media, in my case, specific X, to try to put more positive energy into the purpose. And also, that's not something I plan. I don't have a schedule. Oh, now I have to be nice to him or to her. Now I have to put a smile, whatever it comes from in nature. But still, I think it's a form of decision how you're going to interact with other people.
I find it very interesting because what you described, and I really appreciate people who try to maintain a respectful way of communicating, even if it's sometimes difficult, because we all have emotions.
And sometimes I fail.
Yeah, but also online and on social media. And a lot of people fail with this. So they are a completely different person in real life than they are on social media. And on the other hand, this whole discourse about hate speech online leads sometimes to the misconception that there is no hate speech outside, that you can go outside, everything is fine, and only social media is bad. I find both dangerous. What is your opinion if you compare hate speech in real life, what people see in schools, what people see at certain kind of events? We have a lot of victim blaming, for instance, regarding refugees. We had it against the Syrian community. When they came, a lot of people said, but you are only terrorists, not the Ukrainians come, and the people tell them Putin is right, and they provoked Russia. And this is something that is not only happening on social media. So it happens when they go to the restaurants, it can happen everywhere. Especially I saw it last weekend during a Ukrainian event when people attacked them and told them that they should not complain because it's their fault. What can we do with such discourse?
I think the main difference, and we have to find out whether it's a big difference, but the main difference is how many people are involved or are possibly involved. So if there is a conflict between two people, so the smallest group, it stays quite private. If it's happening in a restaurant and the waiter might very loud discriminate those people, it gets a little bit more public. But the internet, it's like a unique publicity. Those conflicts take place, and it opens all the opportunity. Everybody might think he has the right or she has the right to interact with this conflict. So this is the base where it gets sometimes bigger, and we have the responsibility to try to make it smaller if possible, or not to step into the trap to make it bigger and bigger, the conflict. And this is sometimes really hard to step out, step behind, and not to give it more publicity than necessary. And the worst people are those, sorry, I don't really call it like this, those popcorn people. And they even write popcorn. So they see the conflict and they say, fine, super, start. So those rotty people you might also see on the highway when there is a traffic accident, and they might stop and take pictures. So that's probably the rottest group, or one of the rottest group. Of course, it rests or burst, but one of the rottest group of community. And I really would like to tell them openly that it's disastrous to draw joy out of somebody else's problem, conflict, or even the war or whatever. So coming back to your question, this is, of course, a big difference between those conflicts. And yes, it's a full change, because if I go back to this conflict of the two people, this conflict, this discrimination can be discussed by learning each other to know those two people. They could hopefully solve this conflict. Like I keep always saying, our best weapon against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, trans homophobia, the hating of strangers or whatever, everything which makes the F or the AfD in Germany is strong, and other political parties which draw business out of this. Our best weapon is to meet each other, to learn each other to know, because then we find out it's obviously human itself and not her or his culture, her or his religion, her or his states coming from. So, but it's always the person itself that counts. So, like in Austria again, one of the subjects I deal a lot is fight against anti-Semitism, and those young Jewish children which are forming the Likrat initiative, which is taking place in Switzerland. It was founded and then in Austria and in Germany, brings young, very Jewish people, so some even Orthodox, are very clear in their knowledge, 16, 17 years old, into school classes. And that's really mighty, this weapon. I really would like to call it weapon against hate speech as well, because if you start learning to know those people, and those girls and boys are hilarious, they're great, they are like very normal, they are very cheeky, they are just normal people. So, and the reality now, going back to this Near East conflict, also in the Austrian classroom, sometimes is that many people never have knowingly met a Jew before. So, and then we start to know each other, they start to understand, they start to talk, they start to love each other, they find out they like the same, I don't know, world group, the same music, whatever. So if you start, that is like the little prince, when he says in the tale that you have to we said in English, präsentieren, also to really meet the other people, know him, like him, her, and start to understand. And that's the beginning of and that's more easy, of course, in the personal interaction and on the internet. So trying to find the circle back.
So thank you very much for your very interesting insights, Mr. Landau. It was a great honor to have you in our podcast, and I think the message to highlight the importance of meeting personally and getting to know each other, to resolve conflicts, to reduce hate, reduce even the opportunity of hate speech and the discrimination and everything that is connected with so many different groups we have, and especially in Central Europe, we are very proud of our diversity, but it also takes an effort to manage it. Thank you very much, and looking forward to discuss again.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Dietmar. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you also very much all of you who are involved into this project, important project against hate speech. Thank you.